Hi guys, this is going to be a short one. I got a major supercell rolling in on me, and I'm hearing a lot of thunder and lightning right over there. So this is probably going to be a short one, and I'm going to have to get off because of thunder and lightning. I am the very end of the power line. I mean, the last house on the line, and so it's kind of like that's where the wave hits the shore. That's me, and so I've had several problems over the 30 years I've been sitting here. And remember which way the hat goes. You're looking at it backwards, you know. So, Timothy, good evening. Randy T, good evening. Craig, hello there. Justin, hello, brother. Lucas, good evening. Gary, good evening. Gray Wolf, good evening. I went and spent the couple hours with Grouch and did a video with him earlier today, and that was really good. And then in walked his friend, Mr. Brian Peterson, who's got 3 national champion field dogs for hunting quail, things like that. And so hopefully in the future, I'm going to get to go to his kennel and do an interview with him on these field dogs. He he's one of them people that when he decides to get rid of a dog, it's in the $200,000 type range. So his cast offs are that kind of money, He can afford to go and lease 50,000 acres somewhere for hunting. So yeah, a lot of big names go with him. So hopefully that'll be an upcoming future video. I'll get to do it. Jeff Alexander, hello to Maryland. Brett, good evening. Took by V1, good evening. Jeff, good evening. Andy Knight, hello to South Georgia. Hello there to Bob and Chris in Southwest Ohio. Yeah, I hear you. Ooh. And Jonathan Frisbee, good evening, brother. Glad you made it. Jerry, you took your Blackbird on an 11-mile hike and it held up. Awesome. Love to hear stuff like that. Gray Wolf, I'd love to have another dog. I really would. My old Nugget passed away a couple of years ago, and I've had a dog size hole in my soul ever since. But maybe we're looking for the right one to just kind of drop in the hole type deal. We always do rescues and mutts and etc. So we shall see. Although I would love to have one last time a woods companion. I've had and outlived 4 that were my buddies. We went on every camp out. You saw one, you saw the other, and I outlived all 4 of them. So I don't know, but I do want another one. Brett Johnson, Blackie, can you explain dew point and its relationship, condensation, all weather? Yes. Dew point is the point that the amount of moisture in the air cannot hold it and it falls out, i.e. fog forms. Okay. Usually the temperature cannot reach the dew point because the closer the actual temperature gets to the dew point, its cooling ability increases. And that will change things and force the dew point lower. Now, in the super rare cases that the 2 do get close enough, it's like it is cold as hell all at once. We were in North Georgia, me and my wife and a friend camping many years ago at this big event. And it was only 62 degrees. It had got down to 62 degrees. Okay. We were wearing heavy coats and we were sitting there shivering at 62 degrees because the dew point was at 61 and this cold trough of air had come down and the temperature in that valley had dropped to 62. There was a fog that formed everywhere and it's like you're standing in a refrigerator. That should be pleasant temperature, but your cooling ability goes way up and therefore you feel a lot colder than you are. It's the opposite of heat temp. So in the heat, it says the actual temperature is this, but due to humidity, it feels much hotter. The closer the temperature gets to dew point, it feels much colder. So that's the opposite end of heat index. That's cold index. Okay. Hope that helps. 2020, correct. The dog finds you. Yep, Gray Wolf, I agree. Yes, it is. Dew point is always listed in air briefings because it does affect icing and things like that, especially up there in Alaska. How quickly ice can form because you take a surface, you accelerate it just a little bit, and the dew point in the ice, you get the point ice formed. You know, that's how you can get ice form in the desert above 32 degrees because it gets so close to the dew point that ice can actually form at a warmer temperature. Zombie Nation, good evening. Gary, I have not read that book. Okay, yeah. As long as the lights don't go to flickering, we're okay. Correct. Patriot American, good evening. Rockin' our Bushcraft, good evening. Patriot Preacher, good evening. Dan Lutz told me of one of his many jobs that he had performed in Ohio was he ran a snowplow, and it was early in the morning hours, and of course they got all kinds of thermometers on the snowplow to tell him outside temperature conditions, etc. And he had gone over this hill into this valley, and he said it just everything just plummeted like that to where he's looking at the thermometer. The thermometer pegged at 40 below, and this is in Ohio. It can't be that cold. And ice went to forming on his windshield. He's got his heater and his defroster going wide open, and he's looking at ice forming on the side. And he keyed the mic and went to trying to get a hold of his boss. There, y'all seeing this? It must have been extreme cold temperature drop from very up high. You know, we're way up yonder. It's a whole lot colder, and it must have been a downdraft that came down. But he said it was the ambient temperature was like 10, and he went over that valley and it said 40 below, like that. And then said he went up and down that road twice, and the temperature rose back up to 10 after say 20 minutes. But it was just a super cold dense air sank and hit into him. I bet the dew point was awful low in that hunk of air. Awesome, Gray Wolf. They made it. Rockin' Bushcraft, good evening. Sasquatch Jimmy, good evening. Hello to North Carolina, by the way. Thur, good evening. Lucas, Blackie, what's your preferred pants to wear? For field pants, usually I wear military surplus type uniform pants. I prefer the camouflage ones, but something like that. I like them a little large, and I like the cargo pocket on the side. And rarely do I ever use the back pockets on them. I just use the side pockets. I like the fact that it's got the cinch on the end of the cuff so you can stick them in your boots and cinch them up. So if I'm in an area with a lot of ticks or a lot of ants or something, I can set them in the top of my boot, cinch them up tight, put the boot on over it, and limit how much gets underneath and bothers me. Tim Pierce, good evening. I don't know if y'all can hear it, but I just got constant rolling thunder going on. It's a big supercell coming right over there. Michigan Silverback, you made it. And I saw your video. I enjoyed that. The 03A3 and the Ishapur. I had every gun you had there. I've had one of those. It had 5 of the 03A3s. I've had 2 of the Ishapur jungle carbines, and I've had 2 or 3 of the sporterized Lees. So, Striker, I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for tuning in. Jesse, good evening, brother. Hello there, Bear. Yep, brother. I hope you get to feeling better, Bear. Cordell, hello to Down Under. Thanks for tuning in. Bears at thundering over there. It's constantly rolling thunder over here. Cool. Gray Wolf. Patriot American. Yeah. This kind of storm, when it rolls in off the Gulf, it can be like a hurricane. You can have hail, you can have intense winds. It just wads it up in a ball and it comes rolling up on shore, and somewhere about the Alabama lines where it really starts to get formed up, and you start seeing the hail and the thunder and the tornadoes roll out of it. And it's a big supercell with a lot of lightning. So, yep, it's going to be interesting. It'll only last an hour, but it might be 60, 40, 50, 60 mile an hour winds and just nothing. And suddenly all the trees are going sideways. So welcome to the South. Buck 112, are you going to the Blade Show in Atlanta on the 6th? I hadn't planned on it, but I think Bear had mentioned something about wanting to go to it. Bear, do we want to go to Blade Show? Just walk around and hang out? Let me know. Christopher Evans, good evening. Jerry, you got a storm up there too. Yep, it's time of the year they're throwing them out. Tim Pierce, I know that they experimented with the grooves. 4 groove was a standard, and then they tried the 4 snipers. I believe you're correct. I know that they did try them at one point, and then for war expedite, they went to a 2 groove. I have had a 4 groove. I have had a 2 groove, and the gun that I shot out to 1,000 yards in competition was the 2 groove. It was a brand new barrel, and they had Arsenal refit that gun at the end of World War II. It was 1944 production, and they had Arsenal refit it. Went from a B to a C stock on it, and had put a new barrel on it. And whenever I got it, it'd come right out of surplus. It'd come right out of CMP, and it was a brand new issue gun, and as long as you hand loaded for it, she held up really well all the way out yonder, as long as you had the eyes for it. And I was young enough could do it back in them days. Will, what do you do if a tornado hits? Well, realizing that the tornadoes in my neck of the woods all go from southwest going northeast, that diagonal line, I know that if the tornado's coming, it's going to come from that direction. If it's that way or that way, it's going to miss me. Only right there can it hit me. And I have a hill between me and that. And so it kind of acts like a ski ramp. And so if there is a tornado bearing down on me, and I've had I think 11 total that I've kept count over the last 30 years, have jumped over the house and have lost ground effect or haven't done a lot of damage. We've got a secure room in the middle of the house that everything will collapse in around us. And in that room, I've got tools to cut us back out. So if it goes to bad, we go to that hallway. There are 4-door exits out of that into 4 bedrooms. If it collapses in, this is going to be what is left. And then I've got tools in that hallway. I can go through the roof up and out when it's over. So that's the game plan. Hopefully we won't have to do that. Miss Pam, good evening. Wow, Justin, they're rationing water. Randy, good evening. Okay, that was a good one. Woo! Oh, that shook the house. Adrian, hello to Ireland. Yeah, I mean, there's so much energy in these storms. They're coming right off the Gulf. And it's just when they hit, I mean, you'll have lightning bolts that you will feel it through the ground. Not get shocked, but feel it like an earthquake through the ground. A couple of years ago, a house quarter mile that way, lightning hit the solid concrete walkway and a concrete step that was that thick. It exploded that concrete and left a hole that you could set a Coke can down in that went down 34 inches. At the bottom of it, there was a hunk of molten glass where it had the sand underneath. It had turned it into glass. That was a mainline bolt hit. The guy was sitting in his recliner 15 feet away through the door in the living room when it hit, and bam! He said, I saw red. It wasn't even a white flash, it was red. And he said, I got up and my whole front porch was covered in giblets of concrete. So, which he was an old Vietnam vet. He said, nah, it missed. Striker, thank you very much. Yes, Patriot American. I carry a Victorinox Fieldmaster. It's my EDC Swiss Army knife. Yeah, bust out the Twister soundtrack. Yeah. You know, the funny thing is, when that movie played for the first time up in Canada, it was at a drive-in theater. And they were sitting there watching it, and literally a tornado formed. And it got to be a point in the movie where the tornado rolled in. And that's the moment that the tornado tore the screen down. Honest to God, that really happened. It wasn't a publicity type thing. It really happened. And the people were sitting there watching the movie, thought, dang, sound effects of this is pretty good. And then the screen got tore out, and they realized it was an actual tornado hitting the drive-in theater while they were watching Twister. So what are the odds? Exactly. Misses as good as a mile. Pecos Bill. Now, there's a name I hadn't heard in quite a while. Garen, good evening. Okay. Started hearing winds and just making sure it wasn't getting louder. If I have to disappear all at once, guys, y'all just got to understand. I got to get a wife and get some kids and herd some cats and herd them into a hallway. Oh, cool. Sasquatch, yeah. Striker, how's your health? Thus far, I am doing really, really well. About every month, I talk with the doc, and they've been extremely impressed with my recovery. It really shouldn't have been this good, honestly. They just don't know how I got off that table. I should have been completely paralyzed on that side. I should have been a vegetable. And yet, somehow, grace of God, I got up, and we have very minor things. Sometimes it's handled Trentable a little bit, but it's not constant and it's not an everyday thing. And we're thinking it's just everything's trying to rewire a little bit. I haven't had trouble remembering anything, but I have misplaced a few things. And so it's just nit little stuff, you know. And my wife asked me one day about, I had a name for my first car that I'd had. I had a name for it, and I couldn't recall that name. I knew I had a name, but I couldn't recall that name. And that's been thus far the only thing that there's a block that we just can't plug into. I know I did have a pet name for that car, but I don't remember it. So, and thus far, you know, the doc is I do a tele thing with Doc at least once a month. Sometimes I go see the doc, and we're just taking it day by day. So far, so good. Justin's watching the supercell over me. Good. Thank you, brother. Patriot American, thank you very much. Brett, yes, they do, but they're not. And here's why. The powder production industry, the vast majority, 80+% of their capacity goes to war production. And we've been sending all this stuff over to Ukraine, remember? So they're not making our powders like Unique, Bullseye, and all like that. They're busy making war powders to ship overseas. It's more profitable. And so I was seeing a thing the other day where a spokesperson for DuPont was talking about that certain powders they've depleted the reserves that were on the shelves and etc. And they will be running it, but they're not running it at this time. So that's reason it's become just about impossible to find Unique and Bullseye and a few of these others. They are going to be making it, but the lion's share of their money is war production. And since we are shipping all this stuff over there, they have been doing that and not making our powders. So. Jeff Dowdy, I hear you. Backwoods Rambler, good evening. Garen, yeah, I have been called stubborn and a little bit ornery before. And I can remember when I was very young and something happened that should have killed me. And it's when I drowned in the river. And we don't know how long I was underwater, but we figured it was at 20 minutes before he was able to get me up because he didn't know how long I'd been under when he went to trying to get me up. The bank had caved off on me and buried me alive underwater, so I drowned. And so we don't really know how long I was trapped. But the doctor once was in the hospital and they figured out I had river water in my lungs and they were treating for the pneumonia and everything. I remember the doctor saying, "You're too dumb to die." Anybody else would have died, but you were just too dumb to die. So Metalworks Welding. Blackie, does Kaufman have an online store that's up to date? They do have an online store, and it is not up to date. The best thing to do is simply call Backwoods Rambler. Hello. Call the ladies. If you look in the description box, I put the number down there for the surplus plate. Call them Monday through Friday between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Central Time. And if they know that place. And if they've got it, they'll get it for you, or they'll call you back when they go locate it. So just give them a holler. They'll help you out. Stryker and Christopher Evans, thank you very much. Jerry Donnelly, hello. Yeah, Jonathan Frisbee, yeah, it popped up in the last hour. It's intensified. Heard there was a tornado touchdown in Black. That's about 45 minutes from me, back Hartford and all that area. Thank you. Okay. Blackie, in an old ways, you mentioned dyeing a wooden stock with tobacco and vinegar. How did you do that? We went and got plugs of tobacco, like the old chewing tobacco, like Old Navy and stuff like that. You used to actually buy it in a plug, like a brownie, but it was a hard compressed tobacco. We'd take a mason jar, put the plug in it, and fill it full of vinegar, or you could also do a high count rubbing alcohol. Okay. Let it sit for about a month. Give it a swish every so often, and the color will come out and go into that. And you've made a alcohol dye then at that point, and you paint the wood with it, and it'll soak in, and it's going to take about 5 or 6 coats, but it will darken. So you're going to darken it, you're going to let it evaporate and dry. It'll evaporate and dry in like 30 minutes, and you put another coat, and then you do that. And then once you've done all that, you've got all the depth and the color in there you want. You want to take something round and smooth. A great thing to use is a socket extension. It doesn't have a lot of writing or rough edges on it, so it's that round stainless steel bar kind of stuff. And bear down on the wood and rub, and you'll polish the surface because it raises the grain just a little bit. You'll polish the surface. What we used to call boning. They used to take an actual bone, like a rib bone, and do it and rub it, and it would polish the wood and make it, the color goes into the wood. It's not dark enough. Just keep adding layers. It's a very slow process, but the results are very impressive when you take your time. And then when you get it as dark as you want, as smooth as you want, then you're going to take boiled linseed oil. The best place to get it is not to go get the stuff in hardware. Go to a craft store like Michael's or something like that, where they have one of those places where they got painting supplies, like for art, like oil paintings and stuff like that. And usually where those oil paints are, you're going to have a small bottle like this that's going to say boiled linseed oil. That's much higher refined than that stuff you get in the hardware section. You take that and coat the stock with it, let it dry. It's going to take about 2 days to fully dry. When it's fully dried, you're going to take super fine steel wool and just lightly go over it. It'll be slightly tacky. You're going to remove that little tacky. You're going to let it sit there after you get done. Take a paper towel, wipe it all the way down, and put another coat on. When you've done 3 coats like that, then you're going to whisk it with a super fine steel wool, really light. Don't bear down. Just let it ride over it. And then every day for a month, you heard me right, a month. When you come in from work or whatever, you dip your finger in it and you rub it as far as that'll go, just that much, using your hand to heat it up. So as you rub it, and you'll actually feel a little bit warm. And when it kind of runs dry and you can't see where anymore, dip and go to another section and do the whole stock like that and hang it up. After a month, that finishes in the wood. It's not just on the surface, it's in the wood. See? And that's what we used to call a hand rubbed finish. God, is it time, eats up time. But man, when I was a young man, I used to make grips for 1911s and Smith & Wessons and things like that. And I'd take a cheap set of grips and I'd do a strip of the factory finish, and I did put my own finish onto it and sell those grips for $50 back when you could buy a factory grip for $25, because the look of them was just, that was, but the time it was I had multiple sets running all the time. There were 2 or 3 years, every time I'd come home from school or come home from work, I was out there doing something with stocks, because that was a money maker for me. Hope that helps you. Jim Shelby, glad to help. And thank you for doing that, for working with your help. Striker, thank you very much. Paladin, supposed to get it late tonight in Southeast Florida. I hear you. Yes, Black Powder Militia, 91% alcohol would be high enough. Glad to do it. Aquafortis, yes, which is dissolved metal iron filings in it. Woo, that was another good one. And then you apply heat to Aquafortis, and it will darken it up instantly. I tell you, Black Powder Militia, get the Dixie Gun Works catalog. Look in the back of the catalog. They've never changed the back. It's that much of the back of reading, and it's little tips and tricks and ideas. Just start reading. And I learned so much from that book. And it talked where I learned to do this was out of that book, where they talked about using alcohol and tobacco plug to stain stocks, because that's something they'd done in Appalachia back in the day. See, and you learn a lot reading the back of that. There's a lot of little tips and tricks I'd have never known if I hadn't read that. Springer, what's your favorite buck knife? Buck 110, baby, by far. Love it. Striker, love for you to come down. October will be the next official gathering, and that will be October the 15th through the 19th down at Geneva State Forest Lake. And Justin's going to plan on being there. Tommy, Blackie, tips for avoiding spiders and snakes while ground sleeping under a tarp. Okay, number one, treat your gear with permethrin. Okay, that's an insect repellent. 2, I recommend you get a storage tub to store your camping gear, like your tarps and everything in it. And when you're going to store them in there, on top of it, I want you to go to the pet department at Walmart or whatever, and you'll find this bag of red cedar shavings. Remember that. Red cedar shavings. They go into a rabbit cage. Okay. Now, when you're looking at them on the shelf, kind of sniff the bag and get the one that smells the strongest. That's the freshest. Okay. You're going to then take and put them into something. I like to use pantyhose or something, like a lady's nylon. Pack them in there and put that tied up so it don't make a mess, and put it in top of your storage and close it up. So when you're not camping, it's putting that smell of cedar into all your camping stuff. One, no insect likes the smell of cedar. That's the reason cedar trees were used for years, to make cedar closets, cedar chests. That was to keep insects out of it. 2, when you come out and camp, then your gear smells like cedar, mosquitoes and all, and ticks and everything else will leave you alone, and spiders. And so they'll leave you alone. It smells good to us. It smells like nature and doesn't attract any attention. Next, sleeping on the ground. Understand that snakes are going to come out, and in the snake video coming this Sunday, I will detail it. At dark, right about dark, whenever suddenly all the damn mosquitoes turn up like crazy, that's whenever about the same time the snakes are coming out. And they're going to warm up. They're going to get ready. And when the sun sets, that's when they actively hunt. They do not have night vision. They have a heat vision, which is a FLIR type vision. They see heat signatures. And they're actively looking for things like squirrels, mice, stuff like that, because they don't have night vision and the snake can see them better. Okay. But this is a limited time offer. Normally an hour or 2 after dark, true dark, is the snake's vision fails them and everything kind of glows and they can't see. They're basically blind. And so they got to go coil up and hide somewhere, because the night shift, the coons and the possums and the owls eat snake. So their predators are out hunting them. And the snakes are basically blind at that point. They have no better vision than we do in the dark at that point. So what this applies to you is, number 1, leave your sleeping. Woo, that was a close one. Leave your sleeping bag and all rolled up tight. Don't unroll it till time to go to bed. 2, you're ready to go to bed. Take your light, go look around under your tarp, make sure nothing's there. Walk a 360 around the tarp, and then walk along and shine the light out there. Snake's camouflage only works in daylight. It don't work in flashlight. He'll stand out like sore money. His eyes shine like mirrors at you. And you can see a snake. Go ahead and move him on or get rid of him. If there are no snakes within 25 or 20 yards of where you're going to lay down and go to sleep. Don't worry. They don't move at night because stuff eats them. They're not going to come out unless they have to. Because if they do, something will eat them. So if he's not in your bedroom area when you lay down, he ain't going to be there in the morning because he's not moving around. See, he's got to hide. Now, in the deserts, that's different because they'll curl up next to you trying to get warm if it's a cold night. You don't have that problem in the eastern woodlands in the woods. I have never had one curl up with me like that. I've only once ever had a rattler up under my hammock, and that's because it was raining like crazy, and he moved in because he's probably going to drown if he didn't because I was on the high ground. So I hope that helps you. Okay, let me catch back up here. Pam, yeah, that's a different stock market. Gray Wolf, yeah, we would put kerosene all on handles because it preserved them and it also kept them soft, kept them flexible for impact. What is a good, cheap lapping compound? Got to teach my brother-in-law how to lap boat lugs. Crest toothpaste. I have used it many times to lap in 1911s. It's about a 8,000 grit lapping compound is what Crest toothpaste is. Will, how is Sir Grouch? He's doing fantastic. Y'all will see him next Sunday. Not this Sunday, because I got the snake thing coming up, but next Sunday you'll see him on my Sunday video. Yeah, gray. Well, exactly. Aquaforce is basically black on leather. Woo! Exactly. Gray Wolf. Red cedar has been used forever for that because nothing likes the smell of it. You'll smell like a hamster cage, yeah, but you smell natural. I used to use it a lot in my hunting clothes because it would keep the deer and all. I just smell like cedar. That sounds like something natural. But what's my best cover scent and scent I prefer to use? Diesel fuel. Because what does a farmer smell like? What does farm equipment smell like? Diesel. And so the deer ignore it because it smells like farmer. Yeah, walnut dye works well too. I was part of the walnut clan back in the day in the living history. I dyed stuff with bald black walnut hulls and, had earth tone gear and everything to blend in. Dale Morris, good evening. Jesse, I hear you. It was always in my mind too until I got to understand them a lot better. And once I did, I realized that they're kind of scared to move around. And if he's not here, that's the reason I do like a scan around. If he ain't within 15, 20 yards, he's not going to move around, And to the front, I got a fire. So I always make sure I seal up the back of the tarp on the outside and the inside with leaves. I'll hear something trying to root around through that and wake me up. But he's not going to walk around in the fire area because he sees in fire vision. Man, that's a sun sitting there. He's not going to come near that. So it really works well. Tommy, glad you like the cedar idea. Yeah, Jonathan, I bet you can. I'm sure it's not picking up half of what I'm hearing. So, like I said, we may have to make this a short one because of that. Just depends. Yeah, Comet Cleanser is okay. You can also go to Harbor Freight and they got Lapping Compound already mixed with something. And so you can just they got various grits and just rub it on stuff and use it. That works well too. I like the Crest because it's soluble in water. And so once I would take a 1911 frame and slide. And I would just go ahead and strip it, take all the parts out of it. So it's just a frame, no trigger, no nothing, just a slide. And I'd pack it into the grooves and I'd sit there and just watch TV and run it. And when I got to where I could just do like that and slide and run full length like it was on glass, then I would put the barrel pin in and put the barrel in and do the top lugs and everything and make sure that it went up and locked in place, put the front bushing in and lap the bushings and everything. And bit by bit, I assembled the gun, making sure everything was slick. All the magazine channel, I'd take a wooden dowel and sit there and polish it up, you know. And so when you hit the go button, that mag just kind of fell out like it was detached from a bomber. It was gone, slick as all get out. And I did a lot of working back in them days on making a little extra money. Right, Paul, I hear you. Well, Australia and Alabama are a lot alike in the amount of snakes we got. And I mentioned that in the video. Everybody goes, well, you only have a handful. Really? There are eastern diamondback rattlesnakes, pygmy rattlesnakes, timber rattlers, canebrake rattler. Never heard of a canebrake? A canebrake is a timber rattler, but they've gone to two different type environments. Timber rattlers you find in open areas, a lot like planted pine forest, and canebrakes like super thick, like bamboo groves and river cane and stuff like that. It's the same snake, but it's kind of adapted to two environments, and probably add a couple of 100,000 years and they're going to be two different species. But right now it's the canebrake and the timber rattler. Then of course you got the eastern and western copperhead, two different species. The difference is one's shiny and one's dull. Then you've got the coral snake down here, and then you've got the cottonmouth. Then you've got a hybrid that's called a usually it's a water rattler. And what it is, it'll be a excuse me, it'll be a cottonmouth and a rattlesnake crossbred and produced a cottonmouth with a rattler on the tail. They call them water rattlers. It's a freak occurrence, but I have seen it in my life. I have seen a water rattler. So that's what, 8 poisonous snakes. And then there's like 100 other. I group everything into, there's the venomous snakes and rat snakes. Yes, I know that's not a rat snake. That's a milk snake or a coach whip or a boa. It's a venomous snake or it's a rat snake, because all of them eat rats, but these are venomous. So I group them into 2 groups. And because a lot of times it's just coloration's different between this one and this one. And but we've got all of them down here, and they're everywhere, and they move around a lot. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to leave you alone, you know. But I have, Satchmo, good evening. But I have seen more than one with a bad attitude before. So. How do you go about choosing the right link pin on 1911? I look at the base stock one to begin with. The only reason I go to the longer link pin is if the slide has deeper lugs, or the barrel has shallower locking lugs and it's not truly lining up. You're changing that link pin to make the bore line up perfectly. And here's the easy way to do it. Fire a case, look at the primer hit. If it's dead center, don't change the link. If it's hitting the top or the bottom of the primer, more off center to one side, you may need to change the link. When you're building a gun and you're taking a barrel that's never had a slide fitted to it, and you're a slide and a frame, and that's when you start playing with links. If it hits dead center, I don't mess with it. I don't worry about it. I'd rather polish everything up and make it just work smoothly than trying to get 10 thousandths of an inch more clearance, you know. Yes, Gray Wolf. We got hognose down here as well. Yes, Gray Wolf. A cottonmouth and a water moccasin is a snake. Is the same snake. Cottonmouth is the common nickname for it because when he hisses at you, and he almost always will, his mouth is just snow white. But he's a water moccasin is the official name. But you have a banded water snake that looks very, very similar. It's just whether he's got a stripe right here or two pits right here. And you'll look at him and swear that is a moccasin, but he opens his mouth and his mouth is pink. And so he's not a cottonmouth. And so we started putting those two together to tell the difference between a banded water snake, which is non-venomous, and a actual moccasin, which is venomous. And so we started saying it's a cottonmouth moccasin versus it's just a moccasin. That's Southern term for this is one of them snakes, Patriot preacher. That's why I'm not in Alabama. Oh, come on now. Y'all got timber and copperheads up there, yeah. Well, I understand that you guys right up on the Canadian border. You got with a Mississauga. That's your little rattlesnake. It's kind of similar to our pygmies. So. Yeah. Jerry, no, I don't. When I was young, I didn't understand snakes, but I had such a love and such a passion for the outdoors that I wasn't going to let snakes stop me, And so I educated myself and I learned the snake, and I went with a lot of people that knew more than me. And I told them, I'm scared I'm going to run into a snake. And I had family members say, let us educate you. They're more afraid of you than you ought to be with them. And they took me out there, and it stopped being this devil that's going to leap out and get you. And it turned into just another animal. And I got to where like, oh, it's a snake. Okay, that is a banded water snake. He ain't going to bother you. Just walk around him. Don't step on him. And the vast majority of people get bit because they're playing with one or they step on one. And the vast majority that get stepped on are copperheads because their camouflage is just perfect. And they freeze like a stick when they see you. I mean, you can walk up and tap all the way around him and he won't move an inch. He plays dead. He just dead still. He's looking at you. But if you step on him, he's going to bite you, of course. If you step on me, I'll bite you. But otherwise, you can just really just go around them. Rattlers and stuff. There are not many rattlers anymore that rattle. If you rattle, you got a load of buckshot, birdshot coming your way. So we killed all the ones that rattled. And so the ones left don't rattle anymore. We've kind of selective breeding, selective killing down to where there's very few that really rattle anymore. So. Yeah, Mississauga, that massa snake. Yeah. Paladin, I included pythons and all in my snake video talking about it. The only two snakes that have the capability of eating us is a python and an anaconda. And you're going to say, well, which is the biggest? Okay, you got to define. Biggest as in length, that's the python. He gets longer. He can be up to 21 feet. Biggest as in weight, that's the anaconda. The python will be 200 something pounds. The anaconda can be 500. So big as in heavy or big as in long. But those are the only two that's got a chance to get us. The rest don't want to bite us. They can't kill us. They can't eat us. There's no reason for them to attack us other than self-defense. They're never going to swallow us, and they know that. I have friends that have had snakes, pet snakes, and they'd make the mistake of getting too big a bait. This one guy, he got lab rats, and they were too big. And he put them in the case with his little python, python never would attack it, never would eat it. The snake, the rat's gonna die old age in there. He said it was in there for 2 weeks before I took it out. It was too big. He can't. He don't want to swallow that. It's too big, you know. And he just always assumed that he'd kill it because it was a rat and try to eat it, even though technically his mouth could open that big. He just didn't want to eat something that big. So, and then look at us. You can't swallow you 3 fingers. So they're going to leave us alone. I know, yeah, it's the coral snake. But the coral snake is the safest one in the bunch because his fangs are in the back. And the only place he can bite you is between the fingers or on your ear. He can't, he's got to pull it into his mouth to get his fangs on it. There's nothing up front. So it's got to be in his mouth, and his mouth is only that wide. And so, you know, you'd have to stick the finger in his mouth for him to bite you and venomate you because his fangs are in the back. He's designed to eat small stuff, like mostly moles, bowls, little bitty small stuff. He's not designed to bite anything like us. He can't open his mouth up like a rattler does. A rattler opens his mouth up that big, you know, but all he's going to do is hit and pull back. And I've been hit several times where he didn't even use his fangs. They just punched you because he knew the fangs ain't going to do nothing. I had a big mama, and the largest is always the female. I was crossing this log across this ditch, and there was all kinds of stuff down there. And I was trying to go across it, and I took a step, and I went to step out. This big female was up here, and I couldn't see her because there was a bush blocking her. And as I picked my foot up, it was probably about that far away, and she just struck straight out. And it was like you took a baseball bat and hit my leg. My leg did up like that. I mean, I distinctly remember, because it was my right foot. As I brought it up, I came up, and I could see the heel of my boot. That's how hard she slapped my leg, and I fell. I'm lucky I didn't fall right on top of her. But there were no fang marks. She just punched. She just struck straight ahead like you'd punch. She knew she couldn't. Fangs wasn't going to do nothing to me. She just wanted me. She thought I was going to step on her. And then, of course, you go shake your drawers out because, trust me, you know, after I went whop, and I'm hearing her singing then she went to singing and everything. And I'm thinking, oh, God. And I'm rolled up over and I'm looking at my boot. And of course, you feel like you've hyperflexed your knee. So you can't tell, is that the effect of snake venom or is it I just hyperflexed my knee? And I'm sitting on the ground looking at her almost at eye level, but she's out about 8 feet now, and I'm backing up on my butt, getting out of range. And I got my boot off, and there was not a hole. I couldn't find fang marks on my boot. And but just, bam, she just made sure I knew she didn't want to play. Yeah, somebody was asking me the other day, they said, what do you think would be the best way to get rid of the anacondas and the pythons down there in Florida? I said, start publishing recipes. Start publishing recipes. When you realize that's 500 pounds of chicken, because all snakes taste like chicken. You mean I can kill one of them things and clean them and put them in and have chicken? Yeah, be like 500 pounds of chicken. Rednecks will kill it and eat it. Yeah, Jesse, I told Chris snake eggs. We'd make them. And what it is, you'd take a chicken egg and you'd poke a little hole in the top, poke on the bottom, and blow into it. It's a raw egg, and you'd blow everything out of it, just leave it hollow. That's how they used to do Easter eggs, to put them up for show, you know, real fancy, and then keep them for a keepsake. But you'd blow it out, and then you'd take it and put it into some hot sauce and suck. And you'd suck it back up through the hole, and you'd fill that thing, or take a hog inoculator, a big hypodermic, plug up one end, fill it full, and fill that egg full of hot sauce, and then wax plug on either end and put a great big X all the way around it so you can tell it. Then you take a chicken nest that one of the chickens is kind of kicked out and don't want to use, and put it down on the ground inside the chicken house, and put 1 or 2 of those we call them snake eggs in there. And that was for the rats, that was for the snake, or that was for the possum or the coon that got in. Because the egg would be right there at eye level. They could get it, right? Yeah, it'll break them. You've heard the term break you from sucking eggs? Yeah, it works really good in getting rid of snakes in your chicken house. Chris Evans, Blackie, what's your opinion on cottonmouths being aggressive? Experts swear it's a myth, but I've seen them chase behind boats many times. Okay. I personally have encountered aggressive cottonmouths before. As a rule, they are not. But as my grandfather pointed out to me about bears when I was a boy, he said 99 out of 100 will run from you, but they do not come in that order. Snakes have a personality. They're a primitive animal, but they do have a personality. Some are just more likely to strike and more aggressive than others. These 10 will lay there and you can roll them over and pet their belly and they could care less. These two over here, you get within 20 feet and they're mad about something. You know, I have personally seen it. I have personally had moccasins come up on a sandbar and come at me because they were pissed. Of what, I don't know. But the 99% of them are going to avoid you and are not a problem. But there's not necessarily a zero possibility. So that's the way I treat them. I treat each one of them as an individual. I give them a wide berth. I am not going to hurt them unless I have no choice. But I have no interest in being envenomated and having to pay $70,000 for anti-venom. That's what a lot of people don't get. Go look up how much is a dose of anti-venom, like $50,000 to $70,000. Yeah, they know you're in the hospital. You're going to die if they don't give it to you. So they're going to stick you, baby. And so, oh, it's just a snake bite. I'll go to the ER. And they'll charge you a house payment that you'll be paying for the next 10 years. Yeah. So. Yeah, Tommy, exactly. That's what they do with their tongue. They're smelling. I have sat on a dock fishing and looked up and watched a big moccasin climb up 10 feet from me on that dock and just coil up and lay there and settle down and go to sleep. He's not messing with me. So I just keep an eye on him and I kept fishing. You know, he could only get up there. There was a log there that came up then like that far of the dock. So he'd climb up to it and get on the dock. He's just sunning. He's there every day. I'm just visiting. When I got done fishing, I took the end of the pole and just tapped him a little bit and like, wake up. And he turned, slithered off, went back down in the water, and I walked on by. You know, he's not going to chase me. He's not out to get me. But at the same time, keep an eye on him. Remember the old thing, you know, trust in God, but tie up your mule. There's a reason. Oh, yeah, tans. That'll wake you up. We had a snake years ago, got in the house, came down. You know, your toilet has a vent that goes out the roof to let the air pressure. And it was a rat snake. There was an actual name. I can't call the name of it right now. But it had come down the pipe and come up through the toilet into the bathroom in our back bedroom. And at that time, my blood brother Micah was living with us. And I'm in the other end of the house, shaving, getting ready to go to work. And he comes banging on the door. You know, I got a snake in my bathroom. And he was standing there at the sink shaving. He looks as this about a 4-foot snake come up out of the toilet and came into his bathroom. So he was a little upset. So we went and pinned it and caught it and put it into a trash can and took it out back and turned it loose. But that's what it done. It got up on the roof and was probably looking for birds or eggs or whatever. It was springtime, and it just went down the hole and found the way in. If it kept going, he'd found the septic tank, you know. So we got up there and we put little mesh over the top of them and put a band on it to keep birds or whatever from going down in them. Made a difference. Mississauga, gotcha. Yeah, Christopher Evans, I saw that where that guy got bit by a cobra. Yeah, it did. That ain't cheap. At the military base over here back 10, 15 years ago, there was a guard that he was, the way the base is, you have the impact area where helicopters fire, and on the top edge of that, there's a series of ranges up there to shoot back this way. And there's a canyon road there. Well, it's kind of like detached. Here is the fort, and it's on the far back side of the impact area. And you got to go like 25 miles around to get to those 4 ranges. So this guy's job was to patrol those ranges, right? Because it is so far detached from the base itself. And, to make sure kids don't get up on that range and, do drugs or whatever. And he had gone up there and was in a little bitty one of the pickup trucks they issue them, the little small Ford pickup trucks. And he was looking around, and there was a big snake. And he had never seen a snake like that. And he pulled over there close and was looking at it. And the snake actually come up and climbed up onto the top of the truck and was trying to strike him through the window, through the windshield. And he went, oh, no, that ain't going to work. So he turned on the windshield wipers and everything and kind of done donuts out there and finally got the snake get off the truck, and it got out in the sand. He reached over and grabbed the shotgun, let the window down, and whop. And he went and got it and put it into a bucket and took it back down to the ranger station to ask the game warden, what kind of snake is this? And the game warden looked at it and said, that is not an indigenous snake. I don't know what it is. And so they sent it up to Auburn, and Auburn came back and said, that's a black mamba from Africa. Somebody had a pet they turned loose. And then they found a king cobra about a month later up in that neck of the woods. So somebody had an exotic snake collection and turned them loose. So far they found a mamba, which is super deadly, and a king cobra. Obviously somebody just didn't want to feed it anymore. Two guys in Ozarks. Hello there. Hello to Brazil. Thank you for tuning in. Oh, going to a 20-inch barrel on the Grendel. Cool. Yes, I have, Matt, and enjoyed it. Really did. We used the battering. We did some vegetables one night where we made batter and we didn't have fish. We just dunked vegetables and fried it in battering. It was good. Yeah, Jesse, that was it. The guy had never seen a snake like that be that aggressive toward a vehicle. The lucky thing is nobody got hurt. And the fact he ran into a redneck in South Alabama with a shotgun first before somebody, got attacked by one, because those are very aggressive snakes. Sanford, hello there. Gray wolf. Armadillos, yeah. Armadillos will leap up to 6 feet straight up. So never be standing over one and look down at it and tap it with your foot, because he'll hit you in the face when he jumps straight up. And they'll run wide open and just take your feet right out from under you. They are a tank on high speed. Kenny, hello there. Oh, gray wolf, yeah. Armadillo. Robo possum. Will Rowell, Andy Griffith's Show or Beverly Hillbillies? Watch both of them. I would say of the two of them, I enjoy Beverly Hillbillies better. Yep, Pam. Mothballs will keep them away. Randy Robbins, good evening. Of course, I had a friend of mine that he made up this teeter-totter. Looked kind of like a PVC pipe, but imagine a cannon. Okay, instead of having two wheels and a barrel, it was two big things he drove in the ground, and it would tip. And he would bait back end of it with spearmint gum. Apparently, armadillos love it. And when they walked up the pipe, they got to point X, and they go chunk, and they can't back up. And so they'd be stuck in that pipe. He'd come in and put a croaker sack over it and tip it back down and let the armadillo come out. And he was taking the armadillos down and selling them to the Mexicans for $5 a piece because they made chili out of them. The Guatemalans, excuse me. And never had armadillo chili, not on my list, actually. But, you know, that's the one that the animal that really impressed Dan Lutz the most. He was at my gathering, and he got to see an armadillo. And they just wander around and they could care less. You know, I'm not worried about a snake coming in camp, but an armadillo will walk right up to you, you know, and just root around. I've had coons come into my camp before. I've been laying there asleep and heard something rattling around. I've opened my eyes and be a coon sitting there picking up my pot like, oops, did I wake you? I'm sorry. Yes, and that's my leftover chili. Put it down. No, Jeff, I have not eaten armadillo. Jesse, good night. Be safe. Well, I'd imagine that they'd be kind of greasy. You got to keep all them plates armored up and lubricated somehow. Let me see what the storm looked like. Hop over to my other page. All right, it's a little north of me right now. Yeah, okay. We'll give it another few minutes. Christopher Evans, hey, I'm pretty sure it would. A cobra or a mamba would have plenty to eat down here. Although the mamba is actually a kind of savanna type thing, like we think of our Great Plains. I don't know how they do in a swampy area. And the cobra, though, is used to swampy areas. They like kind of dry and wet areas, so the two of them should be okay. But still, it being a pet, probably never been outdoors, pure guess, because whoever did it, if they get caught, I am sure that's a list of felonies. You know, turning loose a deadly animal, and it had its fangs. That was one thing the game warden them checked. They made sure it was dead. You know, and then they took and opened the mouth up with a screwdriver, and it still had its fangs. They were looking in the mouth to see if they had a tattoo. A pet animal or an exotic animal, they're supposed to tattoo a number on the gum so you can always identify them as a circus animal or whatever. But this one didn't. Fallen Key. Well, you got some more on the way. Because it's passing from us now, heading that way. Armored assault possum, robo possum. Yeah. I can remember in the 80s when they showed up. We didn't have them here when I was a kid. You know, I never saw them. And I figure about 82 or 83 is whenever we started seeing them showing up. Well, these old dumb rednecks running along at high speed, it was commonplace to top a little hill and there'd be a coon or a possum going across the road, and they wouldn't even try to swerve. They just keep going straight. They went bump, bump. Oh, well, you know, I hit a coon, you know, or I hit a possum. A robo possum was a bit different because they had hit it and it was like hitting a piece of concrete. And there were several wrecks attributed to where small car going at high speed on a dark road at night hit an armadillo and lost control. And so I remember the head of the game wardens getting on our local TV channel one Friday night and informing people, do not hit them. It's like hitting concrete and it could bust a tire or cause you to lose control. And so suddenly people went to respecting it. And another thing along that line, there was a March, April is when you see all the turtles are out getting ready for mating, and you'll see turtles crossing the road. And for years, I was on what we call turtle patrol. So if I'd see a turtle trying to cross the road, I'd pull over, go get it, and walk it across and turn it loose on the other side, you know. Well, there was a lady not far from here that she got rather upset seeing all these turtles getting hit. And so what she did was she went and got a actual turtle shell from somewhere and put a rubber fake head and stuff from a rubber iguana or whatever into it, and then put a great big old steel caltrop inside the thing. And so she went and got up at I think a church thing and said that they had a tire bust, that kids were putting these fake turtles on the road and you'd hit it and it'd bust your tire, and for y'all to avoid it. And the urban legend spread that these were not real turtles and these evil kids were putting these, you know, fake turtles out with caltrops in it. And they were making pictures and showing up on early social media. It was all BS. But it worked because people went to avoiding turtles, you know, because they were fearing it might not be a real turtle. They're just pulling it with a string. So I'll avoid it. And people went to avoiding turtles. So in that way, she was very effective at dropping the amount of dead turtles on the road. Oh, yeah. Lucas, I hear you. Backwards ramblers. So I have seen a turkey get hit with a 38 special and it not penetrate. Armadillo's plates will do very similar, but I have seen a turkey get shot with a 38 special and it didn't penetrate its feathers. It had very thick, heavy feathers and it all puffed up, and you saw it go whap and it hit it, but it didn't penetrate. We ended up having to shoot that turkey with a 20 gauge, and it was in a barnyard. The guy was harvesting it for food, and he didn't want to head shoot it. He wanted to shoot it in the chest and get to the vitals, and then he was going to have the turkey mounted, so he didn't want to tear up the head. So he shot it with a 38, and that sucker just kept walking. And after we broke down and shot it with a 20 gauge, and he got it, and he went to digging, and he found just about that deep was that 38. It had slowed it down where it didn't penetrate the muscle. Jonathan Frisbee, yeah. Oh, they'll run like a battering ram. John Hamilton, of course. It is always a good idea to be prepared. Now, bug in or out, both. Have both planned. There are times when in is far superior. There are times when out is a necessity. And so have both. Start with in, grow into out, is what I tell people. And when I've been contacted and asked to come speak to crowds and groups, church groups, things like that, about facing such challenges and the way things would go and etc., I always start with bug in, have all what you got here, and then migrate that a new layer of bug out. so that if you have to evacuate from here, where are you going? What are your supplies? Has the place you're going got supplies you've already cached there? See, and things like that. What are your routes? What are your alternate routes? What is your way to get there? And we talk in depth about that. Yeah, Christopher, feathers act like fantastic armor. In fact, it's funny, but it actually happened. World War One, the Germans experimented with a big bird like outfit that had goose quills layered real tight, and because they found out it would stop machine gun bullets. And so the idea was you would have like that much of feathers, and then you'd have like bulletproof of the day plate underneath it. And the idea was that they were going to make this basically a bicycle cart that was going to have the feathers and all, and the guy would get in it and push it forward, you know, because bicycle wheels would be able to do the rough terrain. So he kind of squatted underneath it and go and get in range and then get into the end of the enemy line. And he had a small machine gun on his where he could start like a Tommy gun. He could start, you know, up and down the line. And so he could just take the damage and run to it. And they were using goose feathers to stop the bullets. You know, I'm sure. Can you imagine the guy that's getting ordered to do that? You know, you're going to take the big bird and you're going to try to run across no man's land. You know, you drew fire from everybody. So maybe it works, but dang, do you really want to admit that? You know, when you're laying in the VA hospital, what happened to you? I was running across no man's land in a big bird outfit. Oh, yeah, that's just how I want to be remembered. Golden Boy and 45 Long Colt. Awesome. Two guys in the Ozarks. Blackie, that would be a great video. Bugging in or bugging out. If you'll go look at the old ways on Bear's channel, that's Bear's Old Ways, and he's on YouTube. We talk a lot about this stuff because Bear is more in that side of it. And we talked about setting up cook boxes. We talked about food, having the bug out. Bear's a big advocate of that. And so me and him are in, I think, the first 70 videos, just me and him talking. So you may want to go watch some of them. Camo yellow, yeah. Anarchy Television, good evening. Thinking about a video of prepper versus hobo. Okay. Both of them have a good thing. One of the things that I pointed out to a group that they traveled and hired me to do a 6-hour seminar. And there's about 35 of them. And they're out of Atlanta. And I told them, I said, I would recommend that you find a shelter, one of the hobo kitchens, one of the homeless shelters, and say, look, I've got a little time. Can I volunteer for like a couple of weeks and spend some time with actual homeless that live in the cities? Because they are the hobos of today, and they have learned how to live off cardboard and etc. Learn what they're doing, because they are the survivors today, the hobo of today. And do not dismiss their skill set, because trust me, they didn't ask to be here. And the vast majority of them, now I'm not talking about the ones with an addiction problem, but the ones that simply life went sideways, their jobs disappeared, they had no money, they got kicked out of their apartments, and etc. And they're living on the street learn from them. If you're in the big city, learn from them, because you'll be amazed at what they know about the very city you live in that you don't know. Where food's available, where this is available, where that's available, da 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 da, how to get here, how to get there. You know, they know. And so talk to them, make notes, so that things go bad and you got to bug out, you want to look like somebody that's got nothing and blend in. You're gray. You know, you just want to blend in with everybody else and walk along. The guy that's got that real pretty rifle and that big, beautiful backpack, they're going to take him first because he's got nice stuff. You don't want to look like the guy with all the cool stuff. Your target then. You want to look like the guy that ain't got nothing. Nothing I got's worth you taking. Of course, you got real stuff. When Katrina happened, I had a good friend of mine that he had to walk out because by day 2, he had figured out he had to get out of town, that his area was becoming lawless very quickly, and he had to get out. And so he walked 3 days to get out of Louisiana and get up to Slidell at New Orleans. And me and him had talked extensively about this prior to this. And so when it was, he had to bug out, he went and opened up the door and he brought out that great big orange backpack. He brought out that vest, that hard hat. He put on top of the hard hat damage assessment. He had that clipboard. That clipboard was made from where they would cut out the window holes on armored Humvees. There was a company that was selling them as clipboard. So it was a hunk of an armored RV. It would stop 12 gauge. Yeah, it's a clipboard, but you can put it against your chest. It'll stop a 12 gauge. It'll stop 9mm. You know, small arms. It was something you could carry. Then he's got a great big vest and a shoulder rig. You couldn't see he had a 357. He's got a short AR in the backpack and a short shotgun in the backpack with 5 days worth of food and everything else. Why are you so visual? Because you're so obvious you're invisible. He started walking out, and when he would hit a group of ne'er-do-wells come up, he'd say, "Hey, y'all got any damage?" About a mile back, we've got an 18-wheeler with free pizza and everything we're setting up, and just want to know if y'all got any damage. They'd take off heading for the free pizza, and he'd keep walking. See, and when he got out of town, he would need to stop for the night. He would go up, there'd be a house sitting there. He'd knock on the door, nobody come around. He'd go around back, knock on the door, nobody came around. He'd sling up a hammock between 2 trees. And in 3 days, he walked out to Slidell. He said, I probably encountered 200 people in that 3 days. Not one gave him any trouble. Oh, and one more thing. Hanging on the right side of his hip, he had a nail bag with a 22-ounce framing hammer with the straight claws. Hammer. Nobody ever thinks about a hammer as a hand-to-hand weapon. But them claws were, to pull nails with, that was called a raven's beak back in medieval day, and it's a real good up-close weapon. He wanted you to think he didn't have a rifle. He wanted you to get up close. That's where the 357 and this is good. See? So he'd say, hey, they're starting something right back yonder. And he had a good convincing story set up, and they would pass him by trying to run and get free beer and pizza. And by the time they went a mile and a half back and didn't find nothing, he's 2 or 3 miles ahead of them and gaining ground. See, he knew when to avoid the conflict. He walked out. It works. Yeah, bug in as long as you can, but be prepared to bug out and have an alternate place to go pre-picked out with gear already there. Chris P., are you fully recovered? I would say about 95%, to be honest. I feel good. I do have some days I feel kind of but we just deal with that, But as far as functioning, I seem to be doing really, really good. And I thank you all for all your prayers and your support. I really do appreciate it. Thanks for the one-win survival poncho video. Those things are great, man. Oh, yeah. It makes a great, rain cloak, and then it turns into that little bitty tent. I love mine. If you have to go minimalist, that's the way to go. Backwards Rambler, my thing is getting home after an EMP. Let's look at the reasonable. All of our military hardware is hardened against EMP. So if you're an enemy firing at us, let's say North Korea, and you do an EMP, you're going to get taken out because it's not going to take out a single one of our military assets. Now, the people are going to be screwed up because our cars don't work and everything else. But as far as stopping the U.S. military, no, you just kick the hornet's nest. You're going to glow. The where we get the EMP being a big thing was the Soviets really thought about that as a preemptive strike of lobbing one over the top and boom, and crippling and weakening our infrastructure system so that they could get a targeted strike and limit our response back. That was true in the 50s. By the 70s, it was not true anymore, and we had everything hardened. So from a military EMP, the actual tactical use today is only going to be considered by somebody the size of Russia. It ain't never going to be considered really by North Korea, because you're going to get one hit and all you're going to do is piss off the hornet's nest. You know, it ain't going to stop our retaliation, period. As far as a natural EMP, solar storm, like we had in 1851 or 53, that electrified our atmosphere, that is very possible, you know. And so such a thing could happen. Another thing that could happen that is in the line of the EMP is our Earth's magnetic field is in the process of flipping right now. I mean, it is moving big time. And the North magnetic pole has moved, I think, 200 and something miles from where it was when I was a boy. And so it's still moving. At point X, there will not be a north and south pole, because it's physically shifting, where what was the North Pole will become the new South Pole, and the new North Pole is going to be off between South America and Africa, out in the ocean down there. World War II, we found it, we called it the South Atlantic Anomaly. But that will become the new North Pole. The problem is, while there is no North Pole, Earth's magnetic field may ionize. What does that mean in English? All electronics work where power flows from A to B, from hot to ground. When you ionize, everything's a ground. There is no flow. So batteries don't work. Electricity doesn't work. How long will an EMP last? If it's from the sun hitting us, it may last a week or 2 weeks. If the Earth's magnetic field decides to turn off, it may be 30 years or more before electricity works again. There simply cannot be electricity. We don't know if that's going to happen. We've never had technology and it's happened a bunch of times in the past, but we never had technology to know the difference. But now these wonders that we have around us that all depend on power flow from A to B, we don't know. We know that we can take the most powerful battery you ever seen, put it in a cage, and ionize all the way around it, and it just short circuits and quits right there. We don't know how severe it will be. We can only guess. So if an EMP happens like that, and suddenly, I'll tell you how to know. If suddenly everything electronic quits, your car quits, everything quits, you will know that night. And here's how you will know. Go outside in the dark and look up. And if there's billions of stars, I mean billions of stars, that you can't possibly count, you'll know an EMP has happened, because there is no light pollution. It means the whole continent is dark. And that will mean, welcome to the human race. Hate to be dark like that, but that's the truth. Correct. Anarchy. They would do that. Well, they would have EMP generators that really didn't generate EMP, but it did something that we could detect for training and testing and everything else. And when they detonated Hiroshima and Nagasaki, there were British ships that were near Singapore at that time that it fried a lot of the electronics on board. And the only thing they could figure out was it was sensitive to the EMP, because the way the British grounded their stuff into the hulls of their ships in those days, it absorbed more energy than like the Americans, etc. Because you remember the B-29s and all that dropped the bomb, they weren't knocked out of the air by the EMP, but it generated an EMP, but they weren't knocked out of the air because they were standard old combustion engines, but they kept running. So it's one of those things that we know of, we worry about, but, I can remember when everybody said in the year 2000 all of our computers were going to fry, and 2000 was going to be the end of existence because all the computers were going to fry. That was 25 years ago. So, but I'm old. Will, what's your favorite field shirts? Super Light for summer is one of this. It's got air pockets up underneath the arms. It's got the Velcro type of it. And in the back, it's got like the cape with the air vent underneath it. Very cool. It's a fishing shirt. I like it's a drip dry polyester that quickly dries, so it can be sopping wet, and it'll just dry by itself in just a few minutes, really, in the wind. But it's one of my favorite field shirts in the summer. Now, of course, I love my military types with the pockets. I want those before. But these right here, you'll see me wear a lot of these khaki type field shirts, and I really like them for that. Well, guys, that's an hour and 32 minutes. I think we're going to cut it quick. I'm tickled to death we got to visit. The storm passed over me and didn't knock me out. But I think we're going to call it quits right there. And, guys, thank you so much for tuning in and talking. I really appreciate it. I really enjoy the discussion. And I'll be on next Thursday night. That's the plan. If something comes up, I'll try to do a quick video to let y'all know. Thank you so much for all your support, all your prayers, and etc. And just really, really from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys for everything you do. Till next time, guys, Blackie wishing you safe journeys. Have a great night.